Hello, this is the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Thank you so much for tuning into this video in which we will go through 3 index laws: multiplying, dividing, and raising a power to a power. So let's say we have something like this: x to the power of 5 times by x to the power of 3. So you know that raising something to the power of 5 means you multiply it by itself 5 times. And of course, x to the power of 3 means x times by itself 3 times. So we say that this is in index form because it's something to the power of something. So this thing here is called the index, or the power as you know it, and this is called the base. So index form is when it's something to the power of something. When you write it out like this, it's called expanded form. So how can we simplify x to the power of 5 times x to the power of 3? Well, we have x to the power of 5 times x to the power of 3. You can see that there are 8 x's multiplied together. So if you multiply x by itself 8 times, that's just x to the power of 8. So notice, when we multiplied these two things together, we kept the same base. So we had x and x, kept the same base x, but we added the powers. 5 plus 3 gives 8. That's the first index law. So when you multiply bases, you keep the same base and add the power. So what about if we wanted to divide x to the power of 5 by x to the power of 3? So we could write this in expanded form again. So x to the power of 5 on top, 5x's multiplied together, and on the bottom we have x times by itself 3 times. So remember, when you have fractions or when you're dividing, you can cancel common factors. I can cancel x, I can cancel another pair of x's and another pair of x's. So what I've got here, I'm left with 2 x's multiplied together. So the answer is x squared. So note, when I have divided the bases, I've kept the same base x, but now I've subtracted the powers. And that's our second index law. So when you are dividing bases, you keep the same base and subtract the powers. But what if I wanted to take something like x to the power of 5 and then raise it to another power? So this time there are 2 powers. Well, you know, raising to the power of 3 means that you are multiplying something by itself 3 times. So this would be x to the power of 5 multiplied by itself 3 times. But we know when we are multiplying bases, we keep the same base and we add the power. So 5 plus 5 plus 5 is 15. What I'm doing is I'm adding this number this many times, and that is just multiplication. Multiplication is just repeated addition. So the third index law, when you are taking a base to a power and raising it to another power, you keep the same base and you multiply the 2 powers. Just like we did here, we kept the same base and multiplied 5 and 3 together. So they are the 3 index laws you need to know. So let's look at some examples in which we'll use them. So let's look at each of these 6 expressions. We're going to simplify it and leave our answer in index form, which means written as something to the power of something. So let's look at the first one. So that's the first index law. We're multiplying bases, keep the same base, and add the powers. 7 plus 3 is 10. Let's look at the second one. So that rule is we keep the same base and subtract the powers. So if no powers written, it's 1. Y and y to the power of 1 are the same thing. So 8 minus 1 is 7, and we're done. Let's look at the third one. That's the third index law. So we're raising a power to another power. You keep the same base, and you multiply the 2 powers together. So in question 4, we have to use a combination of laws. So we do the brackets first. X to the power of 2 to the power of 5, keep the same base, multiply the powers. Then we need to multiply by x to the power of 8. And of course, we just keep the same base and add the powers together. So in question 5, when we have numbers and different letters, we do them separately. So we'll do the numbers separately. 3 times 4 is 12. X to the power of 9 times x. The x is not raised to the power of 5. It's just a normal x. So it's x to the power of 10. X to the power of 9 times x. And then for the y's, the same thing. We keep the same base and we add the powers, and we're done. We did different letters and numbers separately. All right, let's look at question 6, where we have to use all 3 index laws. So let's do the brackets first. Keep the same base, multiply the powers together. On the bottom, I have a to the power of 18 times a to the power of 12. Keep the same base and add the powers. So, of course, a to the power of 33 times a is that. We divide by a to the power of 30. So what we're doing is keeping the same base and subtracting the powers. How easy is that? Alright, thank you so much for watching this video. So the first 3 people from my class who mention this video and the code word Freddo Frog, you can have a Freddo as a thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day. This has been the luckiest maths teacher in the world.